Hey everyone, a lot of hostels have been reaching out to me to ask me what is my opinion about the state of the world and how is the COVID-19 situation going to affect the hostel industry long term. And I apologize for not getting back to you, a lot of you, as quickly as I normally would. To tell you the truth, I've really been battening down the hatches at my own hostel and going into what I call hibernation mode so that we can weather this storm ourselves. But I am optimistic about where we're going with the industry long term. But I wanted to do a video for you. And fortunately, the guys at Hostel Road Trip Podcast reached out to me and they wanted to do an interview as well. And those guys are great. They have great energy. They have great passion about the hostel industry. And frankly, they actually make me look a lot better than when I'm just talking to a camera with nobody else in the room. So rather than repeating myself, I figure I'll just cut right to that interview, and that's what today's video is all about. Hey, James.
Hello! How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So we're just setting up the record now on our end, so just give us 1 minute here while our guy gets this going. So is it good to record? Oh.
Yeah.
So, all right. So
how are you, Bobby?
Yes.
Hey, how you doing, Darren?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there.
All right, here we go. All right, welcome back to our pandemic mini-series on the hostel industry and status of and our daily updates here. And we're very excited to have Darren Overby, a very accomplished hostel Jedi Knight, who's the founder of HostelManagement.com. He's also the owner of the Pacific Tradewinds Hostel. And at one time, you actually owned Hostels.com, I believe. So you're a very well-established individual within the industry. So we're very excited to get your insight on some of these really related, unknown, and unprecedented situations that we're in. Mm-hmm. So thanks so much for being with us. And I've got Bobby Dyer with me.
Yeah, great to be with you guys. Thanks for coming, Darren.
Hey, James. Hey, Bobby. Thanks for having me. It's been a long road, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see what that long road experience can shed some light on, and just to kind of open up with, what are you kind of feeling about in the state of the world and the hostel industry in relation with the state of the world?
Yeah. Well, no doubt about it. This has been compared to a war. It's kind of like a world war. Fortunately, It's not humans fighting against each other, but we are all fighting against a common enemy. And there are going to be casualties. There already have been casualties, both in terms of life and in terms of hostel closures. And there's a lot of pain out there. We're seeing, particularly coming from Europe, but even here in the United States, where we're like 2 weeks behind Europe. There have already been closures of hostels, some permanently, and it's really heartbreaking when you've worked so long in the industry, and even in San Francisco, we become friends with our competitors. Here, and I was really sad to see that when USA Hostels decided to close their doors.
Such a big player and an operator in there. We both worked there and got our start there. So it kind of does rattle you when you see kind of some of the pillars or exemplars in the industry start to close down, and starts to bring question to whether or not you're going to be able to survive it, and how are things going to look when we come out on the other side of it. Yeah. But you had a good question on that.
Yeah. What as far as how do you think hostels, once we get through this, how will come in the travel industry? How will hostels fare?
So here's my belief is, and this is based on 30 years of seeing the ups and downs of hostels throughout the world, and traditionally we always just saw like different pockets of things where different regions would have different ups and downs, but hostels will be the first out of the gate and the first to recover from this when we come out of it. Because our demographic, they're the most adventurous, They're the most pioneering. They're the most invincible, sometimes to our detriment right now with COVID-19, because they're the ones who are like, I'm going to go to spring break because I'm going to live forever. So keeping all of those things in mind about what our demographics are, I believe that, hostels will recover fastest of all. And it's really important for those of us who are going to stay in this industry to be ready for that recovery and position ourselves during this time. So a lot of times there's a lot of hunkering down right now and reformulating plans, particularly for hostels that have closed. This is an opportunity to say, take a deep breath, because normally you're just like, you're at the whim of your guests. Everyone knows who runs a hostel. They know that it's a very hectic lifestyle. You're constantly playing catch up. So I believe that may be a silver lining in all of this. But I draw also from that is that when you look at various tourist destinations around the world that are now the newest up-and-coming destinations, the start of that, the pioneers of that destination were backpackers. They went there. There was a few people who went to a seaside town. I was just in Puerto Escondido in Mexico. I think it was probably a year ago now. I was visiting a friend there, and it was right in that transition point. Hostels, there was a number of hostels there. It was a great scene, in the town. And then what happens is that, big travel capital sees that, and now they're building the resorts there. And so we always have blazed the trails, and I think we'll blaze the trail back when this is all over with. And it's part of our demographic. It's just who we are. And then the other thing that's going to really help is that, when the recovery happens, it's not going to be overnight. But I think we're going to see really cheap airfares around the world for a year or more.
Yeah.
And a lot of backpackers are going to jump on that and say, I'm not afraid. They're going to go. So it's just a matter of hostels being positioned to actually take advantage of that.
Yeah, it is definitely nice to have, one positive thing, have some time to adjust your marketing, revamp your website, kind of organize your strategy going in. And then also, as you're saying, hostels being an affordable travel option. I think coming out of this, everyone's going to be, looking for that most affordable way to get to a destination. Compared to, say, luxury travel. No one's going to have time to really do luxury travel on the up end of this, right?
Yeah,
so
that's a good point, too. Now, you mentioned that, which we've seen, too, and we've tried to use that as a silver lining of, okay, if we can get to the other side of this, there's going to be less competition from the sad point that some hostels have closed. Mm-hmm. There's going to be a lot of cheap flights and hopefully a pent-up surge of travel within our brave millennial demographic that will be the first ones. And that's very gives me a lot of confidence to hear you say that as well. But how do you suggest, if that's the end point, and what we've been trying to figure out and talk to our people and give them confidence is, how do we get there? How do we get through this shit show to get to the other end of that so we are in that position to take advantage?
Right. Small hostels, when I say small hostel, I mean an owner-operator, live-on-site hostel has the best ability to actually weather this storm because it's their home. Now, they're going to have to be very nimble through all of this. They may even, like myself, I'm actually looking for jobs. I'm doing consulting work on the side because the income's not coming in from the hostel. But, I actually kind of long for the days when I actually lived at the hostel when I first started my hostel. And, it would have been a much easier because of all the things that my guests need to live are the same things that I needed. So it's, for those types of operators, it's really about, reducing your expenses as much as possible and, riding out the storm and, taking in optimizing whatever income that you have coming in. And this is actually true. This is true for medium-sized hostels as well. Reducing income, pivoting your marketing. So we're trying to do more of long-term stays. We're doing 1 month stays because there are still wayward travelers out there who have found themselves away from home. They don't really want to get on a flight. And so we're really having to accommodate those travelers where normally we have a maximum stay. We've had to kind of do away with that. And it's basically what I just call, kind of going into hibernation mode. Medium-sized hostels or hostels that are not owner-operated like myself, like I have a manager there now, it becomes much more challenging because you have more expenses during all of that. So I've really had to talk with my staff, and we actually, unfortunately, we had to lay off our staff, and I'm encouraging them to go get unemployment, and when it's all over, I'll hire you back. But it's it's necessary in order for us to actually keep paying the main bills that keep the building and keep the structure. And then I think big hostels, I think what you'll see is some of them will close, but by and large, there's huge reserves of capital. And some of them will just pull out that capital and they'll double down on the hostel industry. And I think when you come out of this, you'll start to see new chains arise from, venture capital. It says, because they'll see us coming out of the gate first. And they'll be
exactly.
Damn, those hostels, they're just so resilient.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to see that from this perspective because right now we're just really in the trenches and it can be very disheartening. But I think a lot of this sort of stuff, the video, we're on hostel management, we're wanting to start doing some weekly happy hours where hostel owners can get in.
Cool.
It is BYOB. You have to bring your own. You have to bring your own camera and your own drink, but just to have that community that most hostel owners, they really thrive on community, and that's, I think, can be depressing when it's you have no one in your building. So
that's very true.
To the extent that we can actually stick together, we'll get through it.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing, though. I mean, two points I want to touch on. You brought up when you aren't owner occupied, as I live on site. I was telling the staff that also on the exchange, we're in a lot better situation than most because half of our battle of having a roof over our head and meals is taken care of by this operation.
Yeah.
So if we can keep the operation going, then we're not looking that bad. So that's definitely an advantage there. And I think that's a really cool idea you have from the community meetup perspective on hostel management, because one thing that we noticed right away was that you had all of these hostel groups on Facebook that were dormant sites that hadn't had activity on them in years, and all of a sudden you see this influx of people chatting and trying to talk with each other. And I really hope that they channel their focus towards hostelmanagement.com because it's such a great resource, and I think it could be a great opportunity to get that community together on that platform.
Yeah. We do have a virtual room on hostel management right now. It's actually on a platform called whereby.com.
Oh, cool.
Whereby.com/hostels. And up to 12 people can go in the room. And it just sits there all the time. Anyone can just go in the room, even if I'm not there. Awesome. People can just meet and talk about hostels. Now, what we actually need to start doing is actually have some preset times when people will meet.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens now is people go in there and they're like, there's nobody here. So then they leave. Obviously people are talking on WhatsApp and things. So anyone's actually can use that, resource and go on there and just say, hey, let's just meet on the video thing. And it's really nice because it's just, you don't need any special software or registration. You just pop in the room, pop in the room and there you are.
I was just going to add to that for things hostels can do to survive is definitely stay up to date with the current local laws, city laws of what tax breaks or rent breaks, are available. Each state and city kind of has different things to help you out. So definitely stay up to date with what's current.
Yeah. It does change from city to city. We just had the city of San Diego put a 6-month moratorium on all hospitality commercial businesses for their leases. So that was a big relief to us for that. At least if we did get in that situation in the coming months, there's a backstop that we couldn't get kicked out and would have time to get to the summer.
Oh, that's nice. I would love to see that in San Francisco.
I was saying, I was like, the mayor has my vote next term. Yeah, because I do think that hospitality has been hit probably harder than everything. So all of these other businesses,
I see restaurants, and I would never want to be in a restaurant industry because those people work so hard, but at least they can pivot to takeout now.
Yeah.
Now, Darren, what about hostels that have fallen or maybe are just about to fall? What advice do you have for them?
Yeah, I would say, don't lose hope. If your passion is hostels, and just because this particular hostel that you were running is closed now, doesn't mean that you have to go off into some other direction. It means that you can kind of, arise from the ashes later as something even newer and better. And again, it gets back to, thinking about like, what kind of hostel do I want to run in the future? And, most of us who've actually stayed in a lot of hostels in the world, the hostels that we know and love are those small owner-operated hostels that have an amazing vibe. And, the bigger ones, like, yeah, they're a cheap place to stay, and sometimes they have amazing facilities. But it may, some people may say, you know what, when I do this again, I'm going to downscale. I'm going to do something that's much more manageable, that, is my place. Really kind of be thinking about, like, how can you, come out of this and do something slightly different than what you were doing before. Now, that's not to say that anyone did anything wrong, like in this. Some of those nicest hostels, I just see that it's practically their home. We were going to be launching the Hostel Professionals Library, which is basically all of my knowledge from my 30 years of running the hostel. And I was really trying to get that all perfect. It's a lot of the notes and things that I've developed for my own hostel over the years. And I was trying to get that all perfect, but during this particular time, we decided, a lot of people are going to have time to actually read these things. And so we actually say, there's certain articles that say request access. And it means that it's an article that was really written for my hostel. And if they request access, then I'll go through it and adapt it for a more general audience, because just the way we do things at our hostel isn't the way every hostel needs to do things. So the Hostel Professionals Library will be a place where people can, refine their plan, think about other things. There's so many different articles that are in there.
Yeah, great resource.
Yeah, and that's what I would say is just for the people who've already fallen, keep the spark in the back of your mind, because you can reinvent yourself again. You can do it again. And there may be different choices that you make the second time around that you can keep your operation as lean as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I think, when you start a hostel, it's from that host. You love hosting travelers and that community vibe, like you said. And sometimes you think you just got to keep growing and add more beds and you'll be making more and more money, but and be happier. But it's not necessarily the case in a hostel, because once you get so big, it's hard to be intimate and really get to host and entertain your guests. So
yeah,
we've kind of downsized so we can be more intimate with our guests in that mindset, and it's become much more enjoyable. You get to connect with the guests more, and ultimately, you see more guests smile. So
and we were talking about this the other day, because as you were saying, to hit on another point, is that you have this reflection time now, seeing vulnerabilities in certain different operations, and the differences of owning a building compared to leasing a building. We have both. It's wildly different in this situation. The differences of having 100 beds or 50 beds, wildly different compared to the nut that you're carrying on a month-to-month basis. We used to be bi-coastal and had a place on the Northeast and out here up until last year, because, as Bob was saying, we were noticing that we were losing the intimacy in our locations and having less enjoyment also ourselves. And we're so thankful that we had already gotten out of that project, because, oh my God, to be bi-coastal right now and have to worry about multiple locations in different areas. It's nice to be in Southern California, and that's it. So it definitely is a good reflection point to look at the way you've got things structured and how you could restructure your model going forward to be a little more impervious and less vulnerable to these types of things, and more manageable yourself, so that you're able to get through these times.
Right. I was just going to share something else that we've done. So we're really trying to also maintain our connection with our hostel community. So we've emailed all of our hostel community. We've started doing San Francisco Hostels Club happy hour also. So where former guests can actually get together because they may actually want the spirit and the camaraderie of the hostel even though they're in their home. So we're trying to remain engaged with our guests there. And we actually did a gift card campaign where we basically said to our guests that they can buy a gift card. It's a virtual gift card that they can use for future stays when we reopen. And we actually said, too, that like if you use a gift card of any amount, you'll get a 25% discount on that future stay as well. And within about a day and a half, we made $1,500 just in people who I was just so blown away at the outpouring of support and people who were just like, they were gushing and I was gushing of like, you know, that's my favorite hostel. I met my best friend there. Like they really, really came out and wanted to support us. And it was just huge. And
awesome.
And if I needed if I needed that little thing to say, okay, am I going to weather this storm, or especially at my age, am I going to retire? Is this going to be it? But when I actually saw the immediate response, I'm like, no, we have to keep going for these people, for these, the next generation of travelers who are still enjoying the hostel. So I encourage hostels to do that as well, and I think. It was also successful. I heard about a hostel in Europe that did gift cards, and these, especially these, the hostels that they have this cult following, and they will come to bat for you, which I was amazed because I figured everyone's going to have low income, during this time.
Yeah, people are strapped, but I think that's cool. We're actually in our original house that we started in, kind of retreated into this for that kind of same type of feel and inspiration, and it's been really cool to be in this house and see a lot of the original paintings and murals.
Yeah, I love the mural.
Yeah, things all scribed on the walls, and it's kept us going in that way as we've continued to get feedback, as you have, from prior guests and staff about how are we doing and, pushing for us to get through it. So that definitely does keep you going, and it's definitely inspirational to hear that, and some really cool ideas from you on that as well. Yeah. Did you have anything else? Now, anything else in closing, Darren, that you wanted to share?
No,
everything's
just
fantastic.
Keep the faith.
Yes.
Keep the faith. Stick together. Reach out to other hostels in your town. Even people who were traditionally thought of as competitors. I know, like in some cities in the world, competition is really cutthroat. But this has a way of softening everybody up. And I honestly believe that, competition doesn't have to be cutthroat. You can actually help each other during this time. But also reaching out further afield. And, there's a number of communities on hostel management and the World Hostel Community. And, that you can actually find other hostel operators that are going through the same thing as you are. And it's just nice to figure out like that you're not the only one. So
absolutely.
we'll get through this. And like I said, my belief is that we will recover faster than other segments of the travel industry. So
that is great. No, that's comforting and inspiring to hear from you. So that's I'm sure a lot of the listeners will also feel the same way. So thank you so much for your time. I know it's an interesting time. And I appreciate the time to do the interview, and we'll definitely be staying tuned into hostelmanagement.com for all these cool new features coming, as we all have the time now to do this. But thank you so much, and all the best to you and your team up there.
Hey, all the best to you guys, too, and just reach out anytime. I mean,
all right.
We can just have a beer online.
All right.
Take care, Darren.
Bye-bye, Darren.
All right. Talk to you later.